Have you ever felt like the wind was whispering your name, only to turn around and realize no one's there? Our story begins with Clara Hart, a seasoned hiker and nature enthusiast. Elysian Fields, nestled in a remote corner of the countryside, had always been a place of untouched beauty and mystery. But for decades, no one dared to camp there overnight. The forest had whispered warnings, a warning those who listened to often found their survival. Clara knew of these legends, but her curiosity was insatiable. What could mere legends do to a person as strong-willed as her? So, on a brisk October evening, armed with her camping kit, Clara ventured into the forest. As she moved deeper into the woods, the trees seemed to lean closer, as though shielding the forest's secrets from her intrusive presence. Beneath her boots, leaves cracked like shattering bones, a sound both tangible and forebodingly alive. By twilight, she reached a clearing dotted with moss-covered stones that seemed eerily placed, not by nature, but by a purposeful hand. She brushed it off as local lore creeping into her mind until she noticed something unusual. A circle of mushrooms, perfectly aligned as if to create a boundary. Warnings flashed into her mind, but Clara dismissed the thought. Besides, all folklore had one thing in common. They are just stories. She set up camp, with the setting sun casting an orange glow that melted quickly into an ominous shade of crimson. As the campfire flickered, Clara could hear faint whispers in the wind. They danced between the trees, almost harmonious, yet undecipherable. She shivered, blaming her nerves and sleep-deprived mind. But then a voice grew sharper. It called out a name, Clara. The snap of a twig came directly from behind her. She spun around, her flashlight darting over dark trunks and brambles, but she saw nothing. Still, the weight of being watched pressed on her chest. The whispers transitioned into murmured cries, as though countless souls were confined in torment. She scanned her surroundings, finding her makeshift camp, encircled by the mushroom boundary. The ground beneath her tent appeared, disturbed, as if recently dug. Her heart raced, logically dismissing every reason to feel this discomfort. But her growing unease was inescapable. She had to push aside her fear if she was going to discover the truth of Elysian Fields. Straining her voice through a quivering throat, she shouted, "Who's there? Show yourself!" Her question hung unanswered, swallowed by the thick, oppressive silence. Then came a woman's laugh, high-pitched and unsettling. It wasn't alone. The laughter grew, multiple voices joining in, a cacophony of misplaced joy. Her flashlight trembled in her hands as she pointed it towards the edge of the clearing. Only shadows swayed in the beam, yet they moved against the wind. Gathering her courage, Clara stepped over the ring of mushrooms, despite every fiber of her being shouting not to. The instant her foot touched the ground outside, a wave of bone-chilling cold enveloped her, making her muscles seize and her teeth chatter. The whispering voices stopped. The laughter ceased. Absolute stillness. And then she saw them, the figures, translucent, humanoid forms with hollowed faces looming between the trees, their gaze fixed on Clara as though waiting for her next move. One, however, was different. A woman, her face whole and shockingly beautiful but utterly expressionless, stepped forward. Clara noticed her long hair floating weightlessly and her eyes, white, luminescent, and void. "Why have you come?" the woman asked in a voice that reverberated through Clara's mind rather than the air. Struggling to answer, Clara stammered, I meant no harm." I just wanted to know the truth." The apparition's expression didn't change as she whispered, "Truth is not meant for the living." And with a wave of her ghostly hand, the forest erupted in chaos. The trees groaned and arched, forming unnatural bridges. The figures began drifting closer, their hollow eyes oozing shadow as each step blackened the ground beneath them. Clara bolted into the woods, her flashlight now barely illuminating the path. But the forest transformed with every step. Familiar paths vanished, and unending rows of trees stretched infinitely. When she finally burst into a clearing, Clara realized her mistake. She was back at her campsite, the fire now dead and smoldering. The mushrooms had grown taller, towering above her as fungal sentinels, and there she stood, the woman with her luminous eyes, waiting. Then, a whisper so chilling it curdled her blood. "Now, you belong to the woods." Everything went black. Legend has it, Clara's cries sometimes echo through the forest, adding to the whispers that warn others to stay away. But some campers still report seeing an unusually beautiful woman with floating hair just before their fires extinguish themselves. Would you dare spend a night in Elysian Fields? After all, the truth is not meant for the living. This was Spooky Tales Unveiled. Until next time, sweet dreams, if you can sleep.